Hi, it's me, and this is part two of the Joy Blueprint. This is my story. Um, it's a little strange because I can't decide, even in retrospect, I can't decide. So to start at the beginning, I grew up thinking of myself as a rebel. You know, I had a boss one time who wanted us to sign in with the time, whereas the county rule was that teachers no longer had to do that. So I refused to do it. I just put check mark. And she claimed it was so that the secretary would know if you hadn't left at the end of the day. I said, fine, I'll put the time when I check out. Well, the funny thing is that I got a phone call one day when I was there, and the secretary didn't bother to call my room. And I said, well, then there's no point in doing this. So I went back to little check marks. I mean, it's just one of the many things. And I mean, I always had an issue with rules from authorities. So that's why I thought of myself as a rebel. But as I've gotten older, I look back and I kind of wonder, was I also a people pleaser? I mean, can you be a rebel and a people pleaser? I don't know. But I kind of think I was in some cases. Kind of like a rebel at work, where it was the one place I could have some authority of my own in my classroom and all. So I was kind of a rebel there. But the rest of the world, I think I was a people pleaser. And I certainly didn't know that for years. I would have denied it vehemently. It's only been recently, seriously, very recently, that I've actually been thinking about that in the last year or so. But somewhere along the line, I went from that magical little child at home who would even look at my daddy when he wanted to take pictures and go, no, because the rebel, right? And having these big dreams that I was going to, grow up and, I don't know, be all kinds of different things, to believing that I had to live in a certain way in order to be liked, in order to be loved, in order to get that fairy tale ending. So I did all those things that I was supposed to do. You know, I wasn't a quiet child, according to my parents and my teachers, um, but I was a compliant child. I was an excellent student, great grades, went to college, graduated early, worked in a very noble profession, teacher. And I waited for my happily ever after because I was sure it would eventually come, even though I was spending most of my nights grading papers. And I thought I'd done everything right, but I left teaching because the first 3 years I realized I was spending all my nights home teaching. I mean, at home grading papers and making lesson plans. I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. So I was still here in my late 20s and I went across country. And I took a job there and I ended up people pleasing there. And on that, I kind of was like, this isn't me. I realized that after a few years, it wasn't really what I was doing, wasn't what I went out to California to do. So I came back to Florida, started teaching again, and I woke up in my early 40s kind of miserable, thinking that I'd covered up everything that I wanted to do in life, everything I was supposed to do, meant to do. And I kind of felt empty and devoid of any passion because I'd put all my dreams on the back burner. Not away totally, but on the back burner. And I carried around some guilt and shame, lots of shame. I was carrying around a lot of shame. And the hardest part of it all was that, you know, who I wanted to be, secretly, I wanted to be really happy. And I portrayed that I was really happy. I put that out there. But I kept thinking, well, who am I to want all this happiness when there are starving children in the world? There are starving children sitting in my classroom. There were children sitting in my classrooms that were really suffering, abusive relationships with their parents, and in foster care because of that, and all these other things. And who was I to want to be so happy? kind of thought that, well, this is just the way it is. This is as good as it gets, as a Jack Nicholson movie said. So I just hid out my little cell of obligations where I graded papers, did my lesson plans, went to work, went to school while I was going to work, and continued to do all this. Having totally forgotten about that fun loving, magical believer that I once was. My dreams became daydreams as I settled for an unfulfilled life, and part of me lost all hope. The all hope, the hope was really lost when I was told I wasn't the one, after several years. I was terrified that people would find out what I was trying so hard to cover up. The feeling that I just wasn't good enough and never would be. So, suppressing all that passion, all my dreams, my voice, because even when I was told I wasn't the one, I was like, of course not. You're not the one either. We were just having fun. I lost my voice. And I went from, with all that, I went from coughing after meals to clenching my jaw to cracking my teeth and to developing an autoimmune disorder, thyroid disease. Had I known then what I know now, because now I believe in living your dreams. It's a lesson I learned along the journey that I went to reclaim my voice, to take back my power. And although the dreams were always there, I felt very stuck. I felt very disconnected and discouraged back then when it came to believing and seeing bigger possibilities for a long time. I had a lot of doubt and fear when it came to my own abilities. Thanks to that lovely little critical voice inside my head saying, you're not good enough. You'll never be good enough. Then, I guess, 10, 12 years ago, I was introduced to the ideas that we can clear limiting beliefs, that we can release all that guilt and shame, that our thoughts become things. I didn't really believe that in the beginning because I was like, well, who would want to be hurt like this? Who would want to feel this way? And I started to realize that I had thought those things, just not in so many words. I didn't really believe that I would ever do or be anything outside of what I was at the time, a perpetually poor, broke high school teacher. But as I came to understand and use the tools that I learned about thoughts becoming things, about clearing your energies, clearing the guilt, releasing the guilt and shame, some of which I'll be sharing, by the way, this week, I realized that little girl who wanted to dance, to write, to speak, to be highly educated, and to inspire others, felt so far away and maybe not realistic, but that she was still there. And as I started to really use the techniques and strategies that I was learning, she started to come back and everything started to change. I went from being that proverbial, perpetually poor, broke teacher to having a net worth that anyone would consider rich. I danced on stage again, something I hadn't done since I was a small child. I even choreographed and performed a solo to thunderous applause. And because of my costuming, Most of my friends sitting in the audience didn't even realize it was me until I was halfway through the performance. During that time, I traveled regularly. I've now been to 9 or 10 different countries, some of them more than once during those years. I earned a doctorate, so I am Dr. Beverly. I completed more than a dozen marathons. I've written a book for teachers, and I've written some shorter ebooks. I've I've spoken on stages, I've performed on stages, I've spoken in other people's groups and on podcasts, and I've done so much of those dreams that I had when I was a child that I had put on the back burner. The dreams I had in my heart, the ones that I thought were really just for other people, well, they started to be real for me. And as I'm being given all these amazing opportunities to be a messenger of hope, doing exactly what I love, it's my duty, my sacred duty, and a wonderful gift for me to teach you how I've done these, to teach you all these secrets that I've used. So I'm telling you this because some of you might be playing small when it comes to your dreams. Some of you may have put your dreams on your back burner. Some of you maybe have a deep desire, and some of you have forgotten your own possibilities and your own amazing power to create. You may have forgotten that you are a spiritual being here to create your life. And so, what I'm here to do this week is pop in here each day. I'm going to give you 3 secrets to your sacred significance and to living an absolutely incredibly awesome life. So, this was part 2. Part 3 will be posted tomorrow, and part 4 on Thursday, and part 5 on Friday, and there might even be a part 6 on Saturday. I'm really not sure. Depends on how long these things go, because I want to keep them short and bite-sized so that you can watch them. So I will be back tomorrow, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye. If I can find the thing to close out. Bye-bye. Have a great day.